Alright, so in this case here, what's going to end up happening when we start getting through this one is we're going to come out with a quadratic at the end. And so I thought this would be a good one to we'll create two separate videos. And like I said, so the first one will comes out with a linear at the end, this one comes out with a quadratic. Both of these, or all three of these, still have the same idea that we saw on the previous page, or this previous video, where we need to get rid of the denominator. We need to rationalize that thing. And so we look for the least common denominator. Well, in this particular case right here, on this guy, my least common denominator is going to be x squared. And so the reason that works out is because if I multiply times the first one, that would give me x squared times 6 over x squared. And then times the next one, so that'd be minus x squared times 40 over x equals, multiply times the third thing, because everybody gets the same thing, we would get x squared times 14. So we come back through and we start simplifying and we see that, oh, well, check this out. We have an x squared on top and an x squared on the bottom. Those guys cancel, and that leaves us with 6. In this case right here, we have an x squared on top. So remember, that's like saying I have x squared on top over x, which is really x times x over x. So in that particular case, an x on top and an x on the bottom cancel, and that leaves us with just a plain old x. So those cancel, that cancels. So that leaves us with 40 times x, or 40x, because we have one x right here on top, equals 14x squared. There's nothing to rationalize here. So we see a quadratic. We know that when we have quadratics, we move everything to one side. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 6. We're going to go ahead and add 40x. We're going to be good housekeepers, and we're going to come back through and we're going to eliminate, so that 0 is equal to. We want to put it in standard form, so we want to be ax squared plus bx plus c when we write it down. So we take our x squareds first, we take our x's second, and we take our constants third. I hope we see right here our greatest common factor. We see that there's a number we can take out of each of those three things, and that number is going to be a 2. So it's become 2 open parentheses 7x squared plus 20x minus 3. And that's still equal to 0. Alright, hopefully at this point you've been using product sum factor to work your way through. So we're going to product sum factor this guy, and so we start our way through, and we're going to say, okay, well, we have 7 times negative 3, that's negative 21. We have a sum of positive 20. Sorry about that. And so we're looking for our factors, and so our factors would be negative 20 and positive, excuse me, I made that same mistake the other day, the product. So that'd be negative 21 and positive 1, because if I multiply those, I get a negative 21. If I add those, I get, oops, they're backwards, aren't they? So let's make that a positive and that a negative. So I come back over here. I have my 0 is equal to my 2 out in front, and then I have x plus 21 and x minus 1. Alright, I have a leading coefficient of 7, so I bring that 7, I use my highlighter, remember I bring that 7 down and I put them underneath each person. So that's divided by 7, that's divided by 7. We say to ourselves, does that 7 go into the 21? It sure does. So on this one we get x plus 3. We say, does that 7 go into the 1? It doesn't, so we move it out in front, and we get 7x minus 1. Remember, that's all equal to 0. In this case here, we're looking for solutions, not factors. Those are our factors right now, so we need to take those factors and set them equal to 0. So we take 2 and set it equal to 0. We take x plus 3 and set it equal to 0. And we take 7x minus 1 and we set it equal to 0. This one just goes poof and disappears. This one becomes -3. This becomes 7x equals 1. And then x equals 1 over 7. So we have two different solutions that we think might work, but what we need to do is we need to check to see which ones will work. So we go back up to our original equation, and we want to check. So we said our first one was -3, so that's 6 over -3 squared minus 40 over -3 should be equal to 14. We pull out our calculator. We say 6 divided by -3 squared. So that's, I'll go ahead and math fraction it. So that's 2 over 3, which you could just leave it in your calculator. We have two negatives, so a negative divided by a negative. Let's make sure that's right down here at the bottom here. Yes, that's correct, because I have a negative here, a negative there. So that's actually going to be plus 40 over 3. And the question is that equal to 14? So we take our calculator back. We say 2/3. We take that guy right there. Plus, go get our other fraction, 40 divided by 3, and we want it to equal 14, and it does. So 14 equals 14. We have a winner. So that means that -3 is one of our solutions. But now we have a second one to test, and our second one that we got down here was 1 over 7. It's going to be a little more complicated to plug in, but we still do the same thing. So we have 6 1 over 7 squared minus 40 1 over 7 is equal to 14. So that's what we're looking for. Pull out our calculator, and this time let's plug the whole thing in. So let's do 6 alpha 1. Let's put our fraction in. So we got a fraction inside of a fraction. It didn't like that. So I got 1 over 7 squared. Oops. Squared. Nah. Do it like that. Minus, same thing. Oop, gotta get our fraction first. Alpha fraction. Come to our, that's gonna be 40 on top. Come down right there, alpha fraction, and that is 1 over 7. So if that's equal to 14, then we'll have two solutions. So sure enough, 14 equals 14. And so we have two solutions. That's a check. That's a good thing, right? So now we come down here and we would say, bam, both of those are solutions. We type those into my math lab. Now, coming back to this problem here, and I'm not going to work this one all the way out. You'll have to come play with this yourself some, but it's the initial steps that get you to slow down, I would imagine. When we jump into this guy, in a similar way, I hope that you see that there's a like expression or a common denominator. So in this case here, we're going to multiply the entire thing times 2x minus 1 squared. So on the first one, we'll get 2x minus 1 squared times 2 equals 2x minus 1 squared times 7 over 2x minus 1, and then plus 2x minus 1 squared times -3 over 2x minus 1 squared. Okay, so that's a mouthful right there. I mean, that's tough to wrap your head around, you know. So we can see here, you know, that we're looking for these 2x minus 1s along the way, right? So we can see that, and along with that, what we can also see is we can see where they're in similar spots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a different color highlighter. On the first one, there's nothing to cancel. So we essentially have 2x minus 1 squared. On the second one, I have a 2x minus 1 squared, And then I have a 2x minus 1 to the first. That means I have 1 on the bottom that would cancel, and I have 2 of them on top, so the 2 cancels. So I'm left with 7 times 2x minus 1. And I apologize, I'm going to clean this up a little bit real quick. I didn't leave myself enough room. So that's going to be 2x minus 1 squared equals plus, now in this particular case, I have a 2x minus 1 squared and a 2x minus 1 squared. I have the exact same terms. So those two guys, the 2x minus 1 squared and the 2x minus 1 squared, cancel, and I'm just left with a negative 3. Now, what I want you to see here to make your life a little bit easier is I want to go back a couple slides and remind you right here when we did this guy with substitution. So remember how we had that spot where we had the negative 8x minus 2 and we let that be equal to u. So at this point on this particular problem, we're in the same situation. We have a 2 times 2x minus 1 squared and a 2x minus 1. So once we move this stuff all to one side, you have your squared term, you have your x term, and you have your constant term. Well, I want to get rid of some of that stuff to kind of make my life a little bit easier. So at this point, this is when we'll go ahead and we'll say, oh, all right, let's let u be equal to 2x minus 1. So this becomes 2u squared equals 7u plus a negative 3. Alright, and then from there, you know what to do. You move everything to one side. So we add 3, we subtract 7u, we subtract 7u. So at this point we have 2u squared minus 7u plus 3 is equal to 0. And I'm not done. That's a quadratic, but I'm going to leave that for you to finish up. So ... you would do your product, sum, factor. You'd find your factors, you'd find your solutions, and then you'd bring those solutions up and test them to see if they'd work, just like we did on the previous ones.